Hey everybody, welcome back to Rules of the Road podcast. My name is David Schuler, and today we are joined by a set of twins by the name of Abigail and Antonia DeAlejandro, and they both work with Switch Electric. Antonia is the operations manager. Abigail is the controller who she controls all the money. And the reason that I asked Abigail and Antonia to be on my podcast is what their story is as far as being women and also Latina in the construction community and being professionally being in the construction and also the engineering community. There's not a lot of women, okay, and to find not just one but a set of twins that that are accomplishing what they've done. It's very inspiring to a lot of people that maybe want to follow that path because, like I said, construction engineering, there's not a lot of women. It's a very male oriented career field, and I know this from personal experience. So to see someone who has to deal with certain stereotypes and obstacles that, say, myself, I wouldn't have to deal with, to hear their story and how they overcome those struggles, it's truly inspiring. And if you go ahead and listen, the entire episode is just one giant rules of the road, which is why I didn't ask a specific rules of the road question, because there's a lot of wisdom coming from both of them in this episode. So, if you're, a woman who wants to maybe get in construction, or somebody, whether it's a friend, a sister, a daughter, who name it, pass on their information as far as what they speak with, and at the end they give their email addresses that you can reach out to them if you have any questions about anything concerning the such, and I'll go ahead and put that in the description. So, take a minute, listen to what I said, and just kind of just enjoy it, because this is what a lot of people go through. And say if it's not just construction, there's a lot of other male oriented, or sorry, male dominant career fields out there that people want to different sex, different race, whatever. They're going to have a lot of these other obstacles as well. So, and there's going to be a lot of parallels. So that's why I find their story very refreshing, and it gives a different perspective that I know I wouldn't have to necessarily endure. So please check it out. And that kind of leads me into a point that I was kind of thinking about. And I was reading a book, and I saw a line that pretty much that struck me. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. And that kind of made me start thinking about stuff as what determines success. Some people say, well, it's the conditions that where you come from, or he's just a product of his environment. And that to me doesn't really hold up so much, because if you go that route, then you kind of develop a victim mentality, because yes, it's hard for people in certain conditions to be successful or to get out of those. And I don't want to dismiss that. But a lot of it also is decisions you make. Now, there's this video out there where this guy, he's got, I don't know, maybe it was about 50 kids or so lined up, and said, whoever wins this race, gets $100. But he would call out certain conditions and say, if everyone, say if you met this condition, take a step. And say if you had private tutoring, take a step. If you had both parents still together, take a step. There were a lot of things, and so if you look, there's a lot of there. It's very staggered as far as who's closer to the finish line, who's not. And I got to sitting there thinking, and a lot of it was environmental conditions, circumstance, affluence as far as how your parents did, opportunities you may have had. And I was kind of watching this, and I was like, I'm gonna follow this checklist, and I did it. And by looking at it, I would have only taken maybe 2 or 3 steps. And he asked probably 11 questions or so. And I got to thinking, it's like, given how I grew up, so just by thinking about it, and I'm not putting blame anywhere because whatever happened happened. I grew up in a divorced household. I saw my dad on weekends when I was younger. It was every weekend, and then it kind of went to every other weekend and whatnot. I mean, if he's got to work, he's got to work. I understand that. Um, and so, him not being around as much, definitely gave me the opportunity to get into more trouble when I did. I mean, I got kicked out of 8th grade for coming to school high. Um, and, you know, that's just a case of young and dumb. Uh, but that was probably the best thing my mom ever did for me was she kicked me out of the house because I was making stupid decisions. There were other kids that lived on the same street that didn't make those decisions. I did. Um, so by doing that, that's what helped turn my life around. Uh, a little bit, and then after high school, I joined the Marines and doing something I'd never. People say, "Well, why did I join the Marines?" At the end of the day, I did it just because I wanted to do it. I didn't really want to get a 9 to 5 job, being a cashier or something right out of high school. I was not in the mood to go to college, even though I had the opportunity to go to University of Cincinnati for a full ride, and I just decided not to do it. And I didn't just want to lay around the farm, so I was like, hell, why not? So I guess kind of what I'm getting at is everyone has to deal with hard times and overcome hard things, you know, in their life. There was a point in my time where I was freshly divorced with 2 young kids, and I found myself doing a lot of odd jobs and having to borrow money just to stay afloat. And I could have just just packed it in and say, this is how I'm going to be. I'm going to be on welfare. Nope, I can't do nothing. Nah, man. I was taking, I took a job as a telemarketer where, you know, there were people doing cocaine in the bathroom and bringing guns to work. And, I was doing that just to help pay the bills for my family. It wasn't the most glamorous work, but it was who was hiring at the time. And, I made the choice like, this is not glamorous work, but it's what I got to do. It's what I have to do at the moment just to make it. And through determination, went back to school, got, got one diploma. Um, it was a tech school. So, went there, got hired out of that, went back to school, got a degree, got hired out of that. And that's what led me onto the course where I'm at now. Looking back and very cherishing a lot of those struggles that I had to go through. I could have easily say, what, I'm just going to be on welfare. That's the hand I was dealt. No, because I decided that's not how it's going to be for me. I decided that I want to live better. I want better. There's a lot of people that will sit there and go, well, this is just all I got. This is just what I have to deal with. And okay, there's a little bit of truth in that, but it's not the whole truth. It's not the only truth. So what you decide and how you see things, that is what will, determine really a lot of how you do. You might be going through something like this. You may know somebody, or you might have a success story. Go, you know what, man? I was down in the dump. I was close to rock bottom, but I dug myself out of it. And you know, don't shy away from people that want to help you. If that's the case, don't feel like they're taking pity on you. And if you know somebody, don't take pity on them. Just be respectful and say, hey, you know what? I just want to help you out. I know I see you're kind of struggling a little bit. Let's get through this. Because you don't know other people's story. You don't know why people are doing stuff. I said this. I use this example a lot when I was, doing, some guest speaking in classrooms and stuff like this. And I just said this on a podcast that out of the blank, with Rasta Rob. You should definitely check it out, dude. Just very fun, conversational podcast. But I used the example. Say there's an old guy, 80 years old or whatever, working at Walmart, and he's slow, taking time, bagging groceries, whatever. You don't know why he's there. It could have been that he made bad financial decisions and he can't support himself, or maybe he's on SSI or whatever, and it's just not enough to get by. You don't know. Say his wife is sick, or his wife just died, and he needs money to pay for some of those costs. Or say there was a death in the family, and he got stuck with the debt. Or say, and I've seen this one, that his kids ended up being unfit parents, and now he's raising grandkids, so he's got to go back to work. You don't understand, or you don't know people's reasons on why they're doing what they're doing, and if they're out there working and try to get stuff done, then don't put people down, because you don't understand the conditions of why someone's making that decision. So if you're going through a hard time, don't sit there and say, oh well, woe is me, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Misery loves company, and so it's going to attract those negative, weak-minded victim mentality people. Don't be like that. If you're going through some hard times, sure, okay, acknowledge it and realize it, and then do what you can to try to get out of that. And that's probably the one takeaway that I would like people to to look at and say, hey, you know what? I may not have had, say, the best upbringing, or I've had you know a real bad breakup or divorce, or whatever your circumstances is. That if you've had something that hit you pretty hard in life, it's the old adage, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. And just think about that. So anyway, Abigail and Antonia DeAlejandro with Switch Electric construction manager and controller, very insightful, very point of view that some of us might not have to experience under said those conditions, but you do have decisions to make. And that's why I asked them to to come on as Rules of the Road and share their story. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy this podcast. Bye. And we're back. All right, episode 11, a Rules of the Road podcast. And today we have Abigail and Antonia de Alejandro. Abigail, Antonia, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do? And let's just go ahead and get right into it.
Sure. I'm Antonia. I'm actually a principal for Switch Electric, which is an electrical commercial contractor. We actually have been in business for almost 3 years. So I basically handle the whole entire aspect of the office, HR, accounting, purchasing, you name it. They call me that I have many hats, that I do a lot of things. So I guess I'm constantly doing something new.
And I'm Abigail. People call me Abby. and I'm actually the controller for Switch Electric. And eventually, I'm actually considering to go back into the project management side.
Okay, now controller, what is it? What do you do with that position?
Controller is actually accounting, another way of saying accountant.
Okay, so you control the money. Yeah, so that's great. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Construction, it's not a typical field where you find a lot of women. I know personally, working in construction and now in engineering, there's still not a lot of women. What is your reason for getting into construction?
We actually, Antonia and I were influenced by one of our favorite physics teachers in high school, and it was all about engineering. So she actually opened our eyes towards engineering. So we knew that we wanted to head towards that direction. So when we started college, we actually went into computer science engineering, but then found out that we really didn't feel like we were up to par with the rest of the students. So we decided to go our separate ways and go. Donia went to industrial engineering, I went into mechanical. But then we felt something was missing, something wasn't really right. It wasn't what we really wanted to do. And then we found out that actually AAC was offering a degree in construction management. And I mean, since we were kids, our dad, he had six girls. He didn't have any boys. So in a typical Mexican family, the father teaches the son to do all kinds of stuff around the house. Well, there was no son. There was Antonia and I. So we learned how to lay cement, make a gazebo out of bricks, run conduit and wire to install like those sensor lights outside. I mean, we did almost everything, you name it. So we actually love doing stuff, hands on. So I mean, construction, I guess it was like natural to us. We loved once went into, we just loved everything, the whole aspect of construction.
Plus, my dad used to be in construction as well, so we were also exposed to that kind of environment as well. So
Yeah.
I thought it was more natural, and it became more of a thing that we figured that's what we were meant to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So as twins, you kind of did everything together. I mean, what was the reason to kind of, I guess merge back to come back together and follow close to the same path? Why didn't one go this way and one go that way? And you guys kind of split a little bit, but now you're kind of back together from what it sounds. Um, was that something you guys planned on, or did it just feel natural?
No, not really. I mean, it felt natural, but it wasn't something that we planned. We both had two different ideas and goals towards
Mhm.
what we wanted to actually achieve. So Abby wanted, after we decided that we maybe engineering wasn't for us, Abby was gonna go to a different career, and I was gonna go into political science because that's another thing that I was really passionate about. And I don't know, I guess it's just automatically the opportunity was there. We were informed of the construction management degree, and it just kind of felt right.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't really much of something that we planned. It just was something that just came, you know.
Yeah. Um, so how did you guys deal with, stereotypes, being women and Latina in the construction industry? How did you guys deal with stereotypes uh, starting out in the construction industry? And now that you guys have both, gone up in the ranks and you're kind of bosses at what you do, how do you deal with some of those stereotypes now?
Well, I'm going to say a little bit about this, but Antonia is the one who experienced most of the discrimination going into construction. But I can say that, typically women are looked as being weak and fragile and emotional. And yes, we can be all of that. But at the same time, people do tend to forget that we're very strong and very determined at what we want to do. So I guess, I mean, people need to realize that women are capable of doing the same thing as men as well. But Antonia can tell you more about her experience.
Yeah.
So mine actually, I have experienced actually four different situations. One, when I started construction at ASU, my first day into that class, I just walked into the lobby where they actually held construction school. Um, so once I walk in, the immediate reaction and comment, and you can see that there was a lot of guys and very few ladies. You could probably count them in one hand. So the first comment that I heard was, "Oh, fresh meat." So to them, it wasn't like, "Oh, how wonderful they decided to join." You know, it was something more like a sexuality or something more like a demeaning way of saying something about a person that decided to go into that degree. I had to prove myself a lot. Just because you end up going to classes and basically you might be the only female in class. And they're looking at you like, well, what are you doing here? I mean, not entirely, not majority. There was a few guys that were actually welcoming. They were very like amazed that there's some other females that are interested in that degree because obviously it's not very common.
And the
Um,
very welcoming as well.
yeah. So eventually you got to meet the other aspect of that too. It wasn't just all negative. And then I actually started in construction as a geotechnical technician. And I had to actually go visit job sites to do testing. So I did testing for concrete, soil, grout. One time I had to go test grout. Well, obviously, somebody can acknowledge how much they can handle or what they can't handle. I was carrying a bucket and they were pouring grout. So that was a way of gathering some kind of sample. So I approached a superintendent from a general contractor asking, can you help me or can somebody help me assist? You know, I'm not trying to say that I can actually handle that, but I'm at least saying that I need assistance. And he just brushed it off. He just walked away, turned around and walked away and made some type of comment. Um, from there on, it just gave me more of an encouragement to say, you know what, next time I see you, I'm gonna prove myself and you're gonna see me at a point where you're like, oh, that was the girl that I kind of just brushed off, you know? And the other thing is now that I'm part of a business, part of a partner, when I go to networking events, the first thing they say, how did you end up becoming the principal or how did you end up becoming the partner? Was it because of your husband? And I'm like, no, I'm actually not married. I'm just one of the partners. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm part of a business just because I'm married or I'm a sister to somebody. So it's out of my own merit. And a lot of people take that reaction automatically thinking that it's because of somebody else.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm a badass. How do you want to handle this?
Yeah.
So,
And they when they find out, they immediately apologize. They're like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. Well, then you should not have made that comment in the first place.
yeah, it's just like, okay, then what did you mean?
Yes.
It's like, we all know kind of what you meant. And I know from the male perspective, seeing construction and then now being in engineering and seeing both sides, and I know you guys can both attest to this, is that working with men in this, there's a lot of ego that I've found. And I actually find working with women easier because there's not as much ego. They're like, hey, you know what? It's more even keeled. You have a job to do. We have a job to do. Let's try to figure this out rather than, hey, guess what? Mine is bigger than yours, or however you guys want to do it. Like, I'm right, you're wrong. And it's like, come on, man. Do we really want to do this?
It's more of a work aspect.
Exactly. and I know there's a lot of pride and people want to have do their job. And I know this is what I say. This is my calculations. I'm right. It's like, well, are you really? Because everyone can be mistakes, but just by that whole working together, I find it actually easier to work with women. Which
Yeah.
I guess kind of, yeah.
Go ahead.
Which I guess I say, it kind of bumps us into kind of our next question is you talk about some of your struggles, outside of those struggles, what are some other things that you have seen that aren't particularly, related to a stereotype, whether it be just lack of familiarity or what?
Do you mean like experience in the
Yeah,
field?
coming into it, like say how you guys switch from like geotech to say mechanical to electrical. How was it with that learning curve that you're like maybe I'm not doing the right thing here? How did you guys deal with that?
I guess. Go ahead, Abby.
I guess it doesn't really matter in what career you're in. I guess for some reason in the engineering construction industry, it's harder for women to prove their worth and their knowledge. And because right away going into it, you already know that as a woman, you have to work harder and double the time to prove your abilities and your capabilities. Because else, as a woman, they right away want to put you as an admin, so as a paper pusher, and so you have to prove that you are more than capable of doing more than that. But it's hard sometimes. Some men or even women, it doesn't matter, upper management, some of them have that mentality that if you're a woman, you probably aren't able to do some of the things that men can do.
Yeah. So speaking about looking back at all those hard times and pushing through, who or what have been some of your biggest inspirations and sort of say mentors that have just kept pushing you along whenever you did hit some of those hard times?
So I can honestly say that my field guys who I worked for many years, they've been my main mentors. They've been there when I needed them. They've actually been very welcoming in answering any of my questions. At some point, I was actually put out in the field and worked along with the field workers just to see exactly what they're doing, what it takes to do something. And they were very welcoming. They spent time to teach me. So those type of people are out there, and if you do approach them, they're more than welcome to actually take time to teach you. So to me, the field workers, foremans, from apprentice up to general foremans, superintendents, they all have been very patient with me, and they taught me throughout the years. So that's who I say that I have learned and I'm at where I'm at is because of them, because they actually show me what I needed to know.
Yeah.
And on my end, I've actually had one mentor. He was actually one of the senior project managers. I used to work for another electrical contractor, and he used to own his own business. So I knew that there was a lot of knowledge I wanted to learn and obtain from him. And so he, literally guided me through the career and taught me a lot of stuff that, no one else, some people aren't willing to teach you. And, I learned a little bit of everything from purchasing, accounting, marketing, just field, everything, a little bit of everything, so that I could be more of a well-rounded person, so that I knew I couldn't be stuck in just one position. I am more than capable of doing something else. So that one mentor helped me through construction.
Very good. Very cool. So in college, you were both, involved in professional networking, especially in the Hispanic professional environment. How did some of those connections help you get to where you're at today, whether it be associations, certain people? How did that work in your favor?
We actually joined a lot of organizations, whether it was business or not business. We just knew that just having a circle of contacts will eventually help us. Whether it was in the same industry or not, sometimes you need people outside of construction to help you in your business or to become successful or just to be a leader. Those
Or
are
what to be once you got to that to be a professional, they gave you those skills. So you knew by the time you actually got a job as a professional, you knew at least the basics. You had that foundation before you even stepped into another job because they gave you those skills.
Yeah, it's one thing that, people always hear, they always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I always, and I mentioned this in my last podcast talking to Anthony, and it's one of those things I've always gone by that once I learned it is it's not who you know, it's who knows you, because you could sit there and say, oh yeah, I know this person at, say, this company XYZ, and then you talk to that person and go, I don't know him. So if that so you can't sit there, oh, let me call in a favor, and it doesn't work out because you're like, you didn't have that, that relationship established that you thought you did. So as long as, who knows you in return, that's where you're going to see a lot of benefit, whether it's, directly related to your job or to something else, because a lot of people don't really think, well, that person can't do anything for me. You learn down the road, you're like, okay, oh, I actually needed someone to do that. And so that kind of leads into the next question is, what advice would you give to young women who kind of want to aspire to, be or do what you're kind of doing today?
One is to not give up and keep pushing because you're always going to deal with struggles. There's always going to be obstacles in your way, but learning how to overcome those is what's going to make you tougher. And it's what's going to make you willing to get to that goal that you want to meet, or that success if that's what you are looking towards to. But over knowing and learning from others is another major thing to also grab onto, because if you have that person that has so much knowledge and you don't take advantage of that, then you just lost that opportunity. That is the only way to learn and have some kind of experience. That's the only way to actually be able to move and go on to that next step.
And what I would say is to be determined, same thing, don't give up. Actually believe in yourself. Look for a mentor that can guide you through your career and provide you with all that knowledge. A mentor is really a necessary thing. And you don't have to change who you are. You don't have to act like a man in construction. Just be yourself and show, just be strong and smart and have that ganas, the determination to actually be successful in your career. So that way, when someone looks at you, they don't look at you as a woman, they look at you as a professional, and just take pride in your work.
All right, so let's switch it up just a little bit. If you weren't, let's just say money's not an issue, and if you had the choice to pick a different career, what would you rather be doing?
I actually would like to be helping people.
How so?
I haven't figured that out, but I always had that. Can't think of the word, but something where I felt like I always wanted to help people. That's no matter how it is, or who it is, or what they're going through. I want to find something where I can actually be of a very helpful in a very giving way. So I haven't really thought about it, but there's so many nonprofit organizations. I'm sure there's always something that people might need help in.
Yeah.
I actually love reading about and studying about anthropology or zoology. So I think I would have gone into something like that. I just love anything to do with animals, from wild to domestic, and anthropologists, just to be able to study old, present, societies.
Yeah, it's kind of, and I can definitely relate to both of what both of you just said, because it's, like, I look at my job and go, I'm very good at my job. It's kind of, if I approach it with the aspect of I'm kind of helping people, because the company I'm with now, we're building hospitals and research labs where they can conduct a lot of, medical research. If I approach it like that, then it's like, okay, I'm helping people, but I'm also still just sitting behind a desk. So
Yes.
I don't have a lot of that personal interaction. And back in the day, I wanted to be a high school PE teacher. I never thought in a million years, if you were to say 20 years ago, after I got out of the Marine Corps, when I was going to school to be a teacher, hey, guess what? In 20 years, you're going to be working in construction and engineering. I'd like, get out of here. Even though it's really funny, is when I took all those aptitude tests back in high school, like we all do, they all came back construction. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do, but here I am. So I guess maybe those tests were right. But
As a giver, as a helping a person.
exactly, because I wanted to be a teacher because I love to teach. There's that intrinsic value that that you're giving back, you're making someone else's life better because you have that personal interaction. And as much of an introvert as I can be, the fact that I feel that that's kind of my calling, it actually shows and proves something, which is why I do. I'm a coach at a high school for wrestling. And part of it was because my son was there. It was also because I wanted to be involved, because I've always wanted to be like that teacher aspect, to be that coach aspect, to help be involved in the community. But then it's like, hey, if I wanted to have that kind of feeds my soul. But it's like, okay, if I wasn't doing a construction and I could just jump into it, maybe I wanted to be a wildlife manager. So it's like, it definitely, we're all in our path for what we do for a reason. One thing pays the bills, one thing it feeds the soul. But speaking about feeding the soul, what are some things, either from a management standpoint or your own personal standpoint, as someone who's on the looking end, what are some non-negotiable things that you find when you're looking at a company for, say, employee retention, like tangible benefits, standard or culture? So you guys can approach this from someone who's looking for a position, or someone, say, from a management position. What are some of those things, like, what, this will not fly here, this, this level of culture, this is what we will have? What are some things that both of you look at?
I look at it as in a lot of employees and a lot of people who are looking for a position are looking for that culture. They're looking to be appreciated. As on the management side, we like to offer that, but we also would like for the employees themselves to appreciate that we appreciate them, to acknowledge what is given to them, to not be always being greedy or wanting more and more and more, but actually see that the company is giving them more than what they actually were expecting. So I think that's something that's not negotiable, because that's what keeps an employee to continue staying with you, because if you're willing to show them that appreciation, then they'll continue working for you. But if you are also appreciative towards your employer, then that employer sees that as well.
Abigail, what about you?
I was thinking that as long as you make the employees feel like they're part of something greater, not just like going and working out in the field, but also be a part of something else that maybe a company can, for example, offer experiences, different experiences, such as, giving to the community or doing something, be able to provide opinions and ideas to the company to make it a much successful place to work in. And also, just making everyone feel like you're part of a family, not an actual just a corporation, but a family. And I think that makes it much better.
Yeah, and that's hard to find companies that like that, because I know from my experience, I've in the past, say, 10 years, I'm on my fourth company. And I've left each company for some different reasons. So, the first one was because I just outgrew that position. The second one is because I outgrew that position and I was, recruited for a higher level position with more pay. They also changed their benefits, which was very unaffordable. But I love that. I really enjoyed that company. They go to the next company, benefits are great, but it's outside of my what I know as far as expertise. Get recruited for another company. It's kind of a lateral move, but I'm back into the mechanical engineering. But a lot of people, they like to focus on, well, this company does this good, but they don't do that good. Everyone's going to leave for a specific reason. Now, some people, I've found, and I know it myself, like, you can always find a good company, but there's always something that's going to drive you away. There's that old.
There's no company that's perfect. And I've learned that you can't really satisfy everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your main goal. You want to make everybody happy, but there is always somebody that it's not happy at all.
Exactly. And, everyone has their reasons for, say, leaving. But if you do have that culture where they are appreciated and they feel like, hey, you know what, that you're offering an environment where, yes, they can pay their bills and they can take care of their family, but you know what, they actually get up and go, hey, you know what, I want to go to work today because I want to be there, not just I have to go there because I have to pay the bills. That's what makes it hard. And there's that old adage, people don't leave companies, people leave bosses, which I know you guys have probably come across a boss or two that you did not want to work for. I know I have. But yeah, and that's what's, it's hard. And a lot of companies don't understand that. They think, well, I'm giving you a chance to pay your bills, you should be grateful. Okay, I'm grateful to an extent. So it's a lot of people don't understand that. And sometimes managers don't want to listen to their employees. And they say if there's a time where a manager wants to hear their employees, an employee feels like they've been ignored for so long, they just don't want to talk. And they're like, all right, I'm out. So that's very hard to deal with. And sometimes it does create a lot of stress. And so rolling into the next question I have for you is construction, it can leave with high times of success. What are some things that both of you like to do to unwind?
I love music. I love listening to anything. Probably most favorite music genre is jazz. So anything with jazz, that relaxes me. And because of the whole COVID thing, it's kind of hard to do some things nowadays. Like Antonia and I will love just looking up all kinds of festivals to go to, or we're foodies, so we love anything that has to do with food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to go with that, it is kind of hard, like you said. It's very stressful. You're always continuously working and being in a management position. A lot of people think that you're just working your 8 hours or even less. It's absolutely not true. You're working even till late in the evening hours. So sometimes you do have to kind of put an hour or so aside. I usually wait till my weekends because it is very busy during the week. So on the weekends, my stress reliever right now has been just being with my parents, family. That's basically my major stress reliever.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people, especially, in jobs that we have, is that some companies, like if you're hourly, you're going to do your 40 and then go home. But once you're salary, sometimes you need to do that time. And people are like, I did my 40 hours, I'm going to go home. Some companies are like, hey, even though you're salary, do your 4 times. But if something needs to come up, you need to stay late. That's what a lot of people who are in salary positions, they find it hard to deal with, is like, hey, you know what? You don't get an hourly pay rate. You get a yearly pay rate. This is what you have to do. If you don't like it.
I mean, there are days that you might finish sooner, but it's
Exactly.
the position.
But just some
Yeah.
people don't realize that um, being salary means more responsibilities. You need to put in more time and more effort, because if you don't, I mean, that what drives and runs the company. And if you're not doing your part, company's not going to do well at all. But a lot of people don't realize that it takes up a lot of our time to do some things.
Yeah. Um, that's what's definitely hard. And especially, say, if you have other obligations, if you have a company that say, you know what, everyone's working 50 hours, everyone's working, like you're working more than 40 heads, like, hey, guess what, don't plan on going home this week. That can, and if that can really, drive a person to say, you know what, I am going to go start looking for another job because this isn't what I signed up for.
They get
um,
burnt out.
Exactly. I remember working on one project where I averaged 60 hours a week for almost 3 months. There was a lot of working from home. I mean, it was a very high profile project that I think I'm still under NDA and I can't talk about, and it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. But it's a very big,
I,
data center in Mesa, Arizona.
It was the same
Um,
way too. I actually ended up working. I mean, I'm salaried, so I don't get paid to work on the weekends. But as a project engineer, as an assistant project manager, you want to put in your effort and you want to show them that you're capable. So I would work 7 days a week, be there with the guys 12, 14 hours. Sometimes I will be there till 10 p.m. working. So I was just trying to prove to others that I was learning and that I wanted to get to where I wanted to get. And at the same time, I would also do like night shifts. So sometimes you just have to do that in order to gain that experience. And then to also show your upper management that you're learning and that you want to move up to the next level.
Yeah, and then also once you hit that next level, by doing those things, it gives a reason for, everyone that's in a position, say, equal or lower to you. It gives you more respect, more credence to what it is that you do, because you are actually taking that time to lead by leadership.
Exactly.
And so, kind of mentioned about high profile projects that do take a lot of time. What are some high profile projects that either one of you have both been on that maybe you are allowed to talk about? Because we all know that NDAs do exist even after you've gone far left a project.
I honestly, my all my high profile jobs are under NDA.
Yeah.
I can't really say much, but they're
Well, let me rephrase that. Which one was your favorite? Which one was a favorite one? Without being too specific.
I would say my first one because I actually was able to learn a lot from. I was in the office. Um, I was a project coordinator, moved up to a senior project engineer, and I just thought that I will always be in the office. Not exactly what I wanted to do, but then a project manager came along and he put me under his wing, and he actually said, you know what, you're gonna go out in the field with me. We're gonna go to this job site, and you're gonna learn a lot. And because of that, I did learn a lot, and that's one of my favorite ones because I did put a lot of I did a lot of sacrifices to put it. I did a lot of sacrifices. I didn't get to see a lot of my family or my friends, but it got me to where I was. So I would say that was my favorite one. Can't say much, but
Yeah, sometimes you can't say the name, but you're like, oh, there was this one project. So
it was. We did it. Forgot how many square footage. Let's say 160, 170 square footage, and it was done in 107 days, so 104 days. So we did it in a very fast pace.
yeah. Abigail, what about you?
Um, let's see. I can talk about one that was in the past. It was actually my first project during an internship, and that one I can talk about because it's not an NDA. It was the Tempe Center for the Arts. So I was a project engineer, a field engineer for that project. When I first started for that company, I same situation. I thought I was going to be stuck in the office as well. And then they told me, nope, you're going to this project. I'm like, awesome. It's, it's close to school. I could go like work there long hours and then go back to school. And I just the fact that I was actually close to the project, I could see, I saw it from like ground up to completion. And I mean, just you learn so much just being in the field versus at the office, just looking at drawings. I mean, things are going on, changes, but if you're in the field, you see it right there, right in front of you, just the whole picture. That one was my favorite.
Yeah, I think everyone's usually, and that's kind of funny. My favorite project, I have two that stand out a lot to me the most, but the one that's probably my first project as well. I mean, everyone always remembers their first project. Some people, their first project is, their most special, but mine was because it served to be a very good segue because it was, my first job as a mechanical designer with an engineering firm straight out of school. And I had just left the field. I'm no longer HVAC, commercial installer. I'm now in the field I'm now in the office designing the ductwork rather than installing it. And once another project that I'm on, it gets kicked out to the field for construction. I end up proving myself so much at a higher level. They're like, all right, you're going to now manage this project from the BIM side under construction, administration. So that's what you're going to do. So, okay, now I'm out on site and I'm kind of like digging it. I'm like, all right, this is great. My first day while I'm walking the building, lo and behold, I run into the first journeyman that I had to work under as a sheet metal installer. He's now with a different company. And just to see, I'm like, wait a second, like, Dave, what are you doing? Hey, Dave. And we're like, whoa, this is a very small world because the person who I first started out under is now on this project and, he's doing it. And it's just to run into that. And then I come to find out a foreman who I was a lead man under is now, running the second floor of this same project. And I'm like, this is very peculiar. This is awesome. That made me want to be there more because not only did I know the engineering aspect side of it, I know the people that are installing what I just designed, and I can walk through this entire building the whole time going, I did that. And I still do that whenever I'm in that area. I'll drive by that building and go, hey, you see all that, hazardous exhaust and scrubbers? That was me. And my wife's like, oh, shut up. But
I do that a lot too. But we got that too from my dad because he would do the same thing when we would drive with him. He would point out where he used to work with. So now we understand why he does that because it's out of pride,
Yeah.
You help build that.
Exactly. And I guess like saying with that project, now we're into the phase where we're installing our central plant. And I'm like, oh, central plants are cool. My dad used to work in a central plant, boiler operator, hospital. So this would be kind of cool to see all these boilers and chillers. Well, they're like, all right, I had to have a meeting with the subcontractor to kind of go over some of the, installation and all this other stuff. Come to find out, it was my old crew that I used to do sheet metal with. They were the people. That was the crew that was installing all the flue ductwork for this central plant. And it was just like, are you serious? To have such a project to be a perfect segue to come from construction into the engineering. I don't think I could have ever asked for anything better. And I know that's what, definitely helped build me and helped, motivate me to want to keep going. Can I sit there and say I can do that today with the position that I have? No, not necessarily, because now I'm more of a management side and I don't get to visit projects in the field that often, which is, I guess that's kind of a trade-off. I like to go out there and get my hands dirty, but I also, sometimes I just want to sit at my desk, even whether I like it or not.
Same here, because now that I'm the accountant at the office, I don't get to meet all the guys personally, because I used to, working in the field, you get to know the guys and you become, a family. And so it's and I miss going out there and just walking the job and actually looking at the drawing and see it there in person. I don't have to picture it. I can actually see it. So I guess that's the part that I miss as well.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that definitely makes it hard. But that like it's like we're kind of talking about before. You're not going to find a perfect company. There's some that are going to be better than others, and sometimes you do trade, one thing of your job that for something else. Whether it's, hey, you know what, I might not be able to go to the field as much, but I'm getting paid more to do this certain part of the job. So it's a pick and a choose, and sometimes not being able to do what you kind of used to really enjoy, it kind of wears on you. Yes. But we are kind of getting close to the end here. Got a couple quick other questions. So one off topic here, not construction related. So try to mix it up a little bit. But if you had to have a book written about your life, what would the title be? And so we'll say, for instance, if I were to have a book, I would probably name it Master of None. The biography of David Schuler, husband, father, and self-proclaimed jack of all trades.
That's a good one.
That's a very difficult question. I don't know, because I guess I've always thought about something like, don't let anyone tell you you can't do it. I always thought about that, and it's always in my mind. So I guess my book would say something like that, or I don't know, something to do with music.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that old World War II poster where the girl's like, "You can do it,"
Yeah.
So do that poster where the guys are on top of the steel beam.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the New York Empire one for like the 1920s or something like that.
You do it as in females.
Oh.
Obviously, who's gonna do that right now? That's kind of a safety hazard. But as for me, I'm not sure actually. I know my sisters mentioned the jefa because
there's another one with a bad word, but I don't think she wants to say it.
Well, we're mostly family friendly. You can tell me off the air.
I guess.
Yeah.
It has to do with La Jefa, so.
Yeah.
It's something similar, just not in a political correct way.
No, what's politically correct anymore these days? So, where, like we talked about, like say if someone wants to, say you have a young Antonia or a young Abigail out there that are hearing this, or maybe, someone's like, hey, they have a sister or a cousin that wants to, follow in footsteps that are very similar to yours. What would be a good way for someone to get a hold of you to maybe learn more, to help be that mentor that you both had coming up into this into the fields where you're at now?
They can actually contact me through my work email. That would be the easiest way to do so. I could say it now, but it's kind of a long email.
Well, go ahead and say it, and I'll go ahead and put it in the
It would
description
be
as well.
A, as in my name, Antonia, first letter A, and then my last name, so it'd be A DeAlejandro at switchelectric.com.
Okay.
And then I would say, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We're more than willing to talk to you if you have any questions. And then I would give my personal one. It's much shorter. So it's ybbajoy@gmail.com.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and put those down in the descriptions. So let's go ahead, and that pretty much wraps it up. Let's go ahead and do some quick 30-second, quick heavy hitters at the end. 30 seconds, final words of advice. Abigail, we'll go ahead and start with you. 30 seconds, what would 30-second words of wisdom?
Don't be afraid to be you. Be determined, be strong, and be willing to struggle. Go through some struggles to get through to whatever position you want to get to. So it's not going to be perfect, but you'll get to it eventually.
Antonia, let's go ahead and close this out.
As for me, I would say do not ever doubt yourself. You are more capable than what you even think. And do not believe what others say. Believe what you actually feel and what you actually can provide.
Well, folks, thank you very much for Abigail and Antonia taking the time out of your day. I know you guys are both extremely, extremely busy, so this means a lot to me, and I hope that your message helps inspire other people, achieve some of the greatness that you've done. Like I've said, there's not a lot of women who are in either construction or engineering, and if your message helps inspire some people, then that's kind of what I do. So until then, next time, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.